Welcome to a black screen. This is GameGuru live broadcast. We can prove it's live because you actually can't see anything. Now what I'm going to have to do now is fiddle around. I have swapped graphics cards twice, so that might be why you're not seeing a display capture. So I'm just going to select, that one. Okay, we got away with it. Okay, I also got a live chat that you cannot see that I can, so I apologise. Do let me know if my little fix worked. Voice is pretty quiet on my end. I'm checking my audio input capture and it's all in the green, almost on the orange. If anyone else has any sound issues, we may as well get them all sorted out now whilst we're sorting out the visual problems. But it's looking good, and I'm actually already maxed out at 100%, so I couldn't even increase it beyond 100%. So everyone, just turn up your speakers. Okay, so the format of this broadcast, for those who are joining us new, it's pretty straightforward. A little bit of a gabble about stuff that we've been doing, show you a few things that happened in the last 30 days, but mainly give up most of the hour, or what's left of the hour, to a Q&A. Where you get to ask your questions, I get to answer them, and where it's appropriate, I'll even demonstrate the answer within GameGuru Max to show you something that maybe it's a button that's well hidden, or a technique that you don't know about, or you just want me to look at something specific. So let's kick it off with, it was been asked many times before in many previous broadcasts, just as a quick summary of where we are. So we have done the high priority bug fixes. Those were done many months ago. Then we switched to performance, and now performance is done. So we got onto a benchmark gaming laptop and got all the demos to run at 60 FPS, which was our goal. The third and the fourth aims, overall mission targets, was stability and compatibility. Now obviously stability is a rolling battle, and it will never truly be resolved in similar ways. Bug fixes will never have a piece of software that has absolutely zero bugs in it. That's just not a thing. But we are now looking at stability and compatibility. Our goal was to get to 85% or more on Steam. That means Steam runs stats, checks everyone's systems out, and figures out all the different kind of computers that are out there. For our purposes, all the PC systems. And we wanted to have 85% coverage, which means GameGuru Max could run at 60 FPS on 85% of all the PCs currently being tracked by Steam. And when we did the analysis, we were already at 85% after we did the bug fixes and the performance work. So that's 3 and 4 also sorted. So now we've got less than 10 bugs actively being worked on. Yes, there's a lot more bugs, but there's a lot of to and froing. Some are not even bugs, they've been proved to be invalid, other ones just need more information. But right now, the extant bugs that we are actually working on is less than 10. So bugs is under control. Performance, even though we already hit the 60 FPS goal we wanted, Preben's going further and he's making it even faster. So that's not really a bad thing. So we're going to get more speed than we actually need, which is great, and it probably expands the number of computers that up until that point maybe couldn't run at full 60 FPS. With this latest tranche of performance work, thanks to Preben, more computers get to play at a faster rate. So that's absolutely awesome. So the next question is, well, what's after that? You've done bugs, you've done performance, you've done stability, you've done compatibility. Sounds like a finished product. And in a sense, it is. All of the features we wanted to do at the outset when we redesigned GameGuru to become GameGuru Max, all the features that we said we need all of these in version 1, those are in. Along the way, however, the GitHub issues board collected 1 or 2 feature requests outside of the scope of version 1, but we kept track of them. There are hundreds of these requests, and we have been cataloging them and also tagging them and allowing the original authors plus other members of the community to add details to those specific features. The more details we have, the more idea we have of what that feature is and what it isn't. It's just as important to figure out what you're not doing, so you don't spend half your life working on a feature that nobody wants or can't use. And so that's on the issues board for everyone to bask in. That isn't, however, what we're going to be working on next. What we're working on next is something internal. It doesn't really affect the software that's in front of you directly, but it will actually improve the efficiency of delivering future bug fixes and future features, which is called continuous integration, continuous deployment. That's just a fancy way of saying when a bug's been fixed and is committed to the GitHub repository, back-end servers kick in, immediately compile, and then place that compiled file in a deployment package, and then upload that package to what's called a nightly build. It wouldn't necessarily be every day and every night, but as soon as the code is committed, boom, it's available in the public for you to play that latest binary. And you can see the benefits of that. As soon as code is added to the engine, you instantly, within 5-10 minutes or 20 minutes, we've not created it yet, we're in the process of crafting this, you will be able to get instant access to that very, very experimental binary latest version of the software. And then, of course, once we're happy with the particular version, then we'll promote it to the EXP build. And then if we're happy with that, then it bumps up to the actual public release. So potentially, using this system, it may be that we get a lot more updates out than the standard 4 or 5 or 10 per year. You might be getting hundreds of updates over the course of. So you can see the benefit of CI/CD, and it applies not just to GameGuru Max, but our other software. So it's sort of company-wide improvement that we're looking at, and it's still early days. It is not a new thing. Continuous integration and deployment has been around forever, about 10 years, and it's a standard practice now for all of the larger software development houses. It's just the way we've got it all set up, it's all very local, doesn't lend itself easily at the moment to putting it on a server and have the server do the work. It's not impossible, there's just a lot of things that we have to tweak so it makes that process possible. So that's what we're doing in the background, and the first sort of visible public-facing thing you'd see as a result of that is just more updates and an extra dimension to people contributing to the GitHub repository for GameGuru Max. So someone creates a branch and they're a trusted contributor, and as soon as their code drops, it's instantly available to everyone if they have access to that particular build. And that could be quite useful, especially when someone who's contributed but also working with someone who's, say, working on a game. They don't want to wait for us, we're currently the bottleneck, to get an EXP build out. The person who wants that change can get to play instantaneously. So that's the benefit. And it's a long-term benefit as well. So that's where we are, and that's where we was, and that's where we're going in the next 30 to 60 days. And we'll keep you informed via broadcasts like this, but also on Discord and other social outlets. Okay, so there's a couple of things I'd like to talk about before I hand it over to the Q&A. In fact, before I do that, I just want to glance over at the live chat. I asked the question if everyone could hear me okay. Never really bothered to look for an answer, but the conversations is going on quite nicely. No one's screaming blue murder, so I guess everything worked out in the end, and we've got our audio and our visuals back. So one thing that was added very recently, there was a bug report. It was erratic, which means we couldn't reproduce it, where all of a sudden, out of the blue, an FPM level file would be deleted, or it wouldn't save changes. Deleted being the worst of the two. When you've worked for 20, 30 hours on your level and then you find your level isn't there anymore, could be quite annoying. I have posted little footnotes about doing lots of backups, having cloud backups and the rest of it, but that's all very well after the fact. Best laid plans and all that. Once you've set up your backup system, you tend to ignore it, and then when you go back and look for a backup you thought you had in place, it isn't there anymore. It's quite annoying. So GameGuru Max has solved that. In the latest EXP build, there is now something called automatic backups. You'll find a folder in your map writables folder called _automatic backups, and it will keep the 10 last copies of your level. So every time you save a level, it remembers the previous one and the previous one and the previous one. So you'll always be able to go back or roll back 10 times for the last 10 saves. So if suddenly you find that your level isn't there or it's corrupt or whatever, you can step back 10 versions if you saved at least 10 times. And that system will keep rolling out on and on and on well past 10 saves. So after 10 saves, it deletes the older backup so it doesn't hog all of your hard drive space. That count of 10 is hard coded right now. I suspect down the road people will want control of that and whether to switch it on and off. Right now it's on by default and you can't switch it off. And that will be for every level name. So it files away the backups by the name of that level. The good news is it also accounts for subfolders within your map bank as well. So you can have different folders for if you've got 3 or 4 or 5 projects on the go and you may just want to call them level 1, level 2, level 3. It will actually do the automatic backups and include the folder hierarchy designations in with the backup file name. And it's a nice single hierarchy, massive list of files. You just find the one you want to restore, just copy it into your map bank, rename it to whatever you want, boom, you've got your work back. So that is really just a stopgap. It's a cool feature, and providing it all works well, it will save you a few times in the course of making your games. But we still need to find that original bug, the one where a file can be deleted for some reason, and it needs to reproducing. So the issues on the issues board, it's still extant, it's in there. If you find it's happening to you, or you found a way to reliably reproduce it, please add that information to the issue, and so we can fix the underlying bug. So this is one of those situations where it was a bug that caused a feature to be created. So a good bug. So that's the automatic backups. As I've already mentioned, we try to keep the bug count now to less than 10. So that's all. When we get to like 15, and as soon as it gets nearer to 25, it's in danger of going onto 2 pages on the GitHub issues board, which is a big no-no. So we try and keep it to 9 or less. And I think we was at 7 the last time I looked, so that's pretty good for bug fixes. And if you're interested in performance, or you disagree with us that we haven't got there yet in terms of performance, please check out the Patreon page, Plemsoft. There's actually performance work going on there that goes beyond what is already available in the current EXP build, and is related to something called level of detail, which is a really cool technique. And there's some other performance work going on as well. So you can get it right hot off the press, stuff that Brabham's working on right now on his Patreon page. And you can see videos of it running and the performance, the FPS shooting right up. And hopefully I'll be able to deliver some of that goodness in future builds. So that's what's going on in the news. Nothing to show you in terms of a running demo. But if anyone in the community has something they'd like me to share in these broadcasts, maybe a couple of minutes of a video, or send me a whole project and I'll run through it for a couple of minutes, I'm quite happy to do so. There's some really excellent projects on the go, and I think it'll be a good content to add to this broadcast. So without further ado, I know you're screaming on the questions area to get your answers before we run out of the hour. We're 20 minutes in, so that's about right. 20 minutes of me gabbing, and then 40 minutes to talk about questions and answers. So without further ado, let's see if this fills up. Okay, so we got visual 1, which is always a bonus. Now we got to go and find visual 2, and I think what we're going to do is select that, and then select that, and then click that, and then adjust the window so we get maximum use, and then there you go. Sorry about this, I haven't yet found a way of automating this. It seems the window, when you pop it out, I think we solved it once, didn't we, in a previous broadcast, but I've since forgotten that piece of magic that I discovered. So we're going to have to live through the process of me manually placing the chat window every broadcast. So I'm going to scroll to the top. I'm going to find the questions in chronological order. If you could drop a question mark at the end of it, makes it a little bit easier for me to skim through, find those questions, and maybe get a few more answers into the hour. Okay, so I'm going to get through all the, I think there was some chat about the intro that precedes my gabbing. And we are getting to the first question. Lee using AMD question mark. I am. There was a bug recently, the AMD black screen. And it turned out the trigger was an updated AMD driver. The one from March 2023 works great. And then I think there's like 10 or 12 more updates to that driver up to March 2024. And by then, GameGuru Max would crash. Well, it wouldn't crash. It would just give you a black screen. When I fixed the black screen issue, then it crashed. When I reverted the driver back to March 2023, the crash disappeared as well. So I think the black screen was just a symptom of something more horrible going on in the driver, that when that black screen visual artifact was corrected, it then moved on to so the nuclear option and basically crashed out the whole DirectX 11 driver. So my new recommendation now is anyone who has one of these, they're not all AMD cards, just some of the older ones. The one I've got in my machine now is I keep going, most people upgrade their graphics card so they get faster. All my upgrades have actually gone in the opposite direction to make my machine slower. So now I'm running an RX 5500 XT. And I've rolled back to March 2023 drivers and everything's tickety-boo and fine. At one point we thought it was performance work, that's creating instability, but then we just went back to an early version before any performance work and it still crashed, so it definitely got locked down to this particular set of graphics cards and a particular set of drivers. So that's why I'm using the AMD, but I bounce between all manufacturers mostly because the only reason the card's in my machine is because there's some kind of problem with it and I have to fix it. So I've got longer the days where I can actually choose a graphics card because it's cool or I like it. It's mostly because I've had to coax it off eBay, test some horror story. And that's why I've got an AMD in my machine right now. Okay, let's see if we can find a question related to game making in general. And I think we've got a first question from Monkey Frog Studios. What is the status on proper project folders in Macs? Yeah, it's like, now we're at the point where we could call it a version 1 without cracking a grin, with all our bugs and performance and stability doing okay now. We are starting to look at our feature request board, and there is a lot of them. And at the top of that list, you'll be pleased to hear, is the project system. It's not a big job. A lot of it's already in the background inside the code. It just has to be separated out and then some UI added to it just to make sure that it delivers on what you want. For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, the new project system, rather than have some sort of hybrid model where you select an object and you basically reference that object when you're creating your level, there's a group within the community who want a completely separate project area for their files. So there isn't any referencing to all scripts that come out of the box of stock or any references to objects. Those scripts, those objects, those everythings, they are copied over into the project folder area, thus islanding your project, keeping it quite safe from unnecessary updates. We've fixed a script to make it do better and it actually kills your project. Not a great thing. So at a certain point, when you take your game making seriously, you'll want completely separate island project folder, and that's what we're talking about. We're not giving up the old way. You'll still be able to do the hybrid model of just referencing from the libraries and the behaviors, but you'll have this additional option to have your own separate project folder, which has some other benefits, not just the islanding feature, but the fact you could zip it all up and back it up. It's all there. It's not spread out all over the place. All the files in that folder, you can just zip it up and you've got it. Or you can zip it up and send it to someone you're working on the project with. So other benefits. And that's what the project system is. It's not going to be done right away, and I can't give you an ETA on when it's going to complete. I want to get the CI/CD system sorted out first, because it's one of those things where if we do it later, the time we could have saved if we had it in place now would have given us that time back to work on other things. So it's almost like we'll put this in place now to save us those extra days in the year, and those extra days can be spent on working on more features. So that's why we're doing the CI/CD. Even though it's super boring and no one really asks for it, it's just it's an efficiency. It's almost like making sure you've got the best tools before you start building something. It's as simple as that. So yeah, on the way, on the way. I'm looking forward to doing it myself, and it would be a shame not to deliver it, because I think it is going to be like the cherry on top if you wanted to do serious game development. Okay, another question. Retracted. Extreme Strategy asked, could loading times be improved so levels load faster? Yes. Loading times wasn't really the major attack on the performance work. It was really about getting that 60 FPS, so you get a nice fluid, performant gameplay experience. We did make improvements to the loading times in various areas, notably the launch time. It used to be something like 12 seconds on my machine, got it down to 5. Some cheating there. I moved some of the loading work into when you open up your first storyboard project. So 3 seconds was moved from the launch into there. So it just means that your software boots up, you can see more sooner, which feels nice. And I think 5 seconds is the most you should be waiting before your software is ready to use. But yeah, all the way along the line, there are things that we can do. I've noticed that on one of the empty levels, it stores an 18, is it an 18 meg? Yeah, an 18 meg texture file for potentially storing the terrain paint. But on an empty level, you know, the grey grid, initially there is no paint, so why are we storing an 18 meg file every time, even on basically an empty level? And that FPM, which would compressed be 12 meg, that takes time to load in 12 meg, then decompress it, then get all the files where they need to be. So little things like that, which will have zero impact on what you see and what you do, it's just back of the sort of the back end system. There are areas of improvement, and I think those will come along just as a matter of convenience. Obviously, if it can be connected to a bug or something serious, then it'll get more priority. But those things will just happen as a course of we're in the area, we're already working on this, I spotted that, I remembered, oh yeah, we can get rid of that file if we don't need it. And then it's like a 5-minute job whilst you've got the code open. And then in a future update, you suddenly get faster loading times. And you can multiply that scenario by 50 or 100 based on all those little death by 1,000 cuts issues that we currently deal with when you load things in. And there's other techniques as well, but we'll get to those as we work on different parts of the engine, and then when we've stopped laughing, find a way to optimize it a little bit. Okay, scrolly. Next question. This is from Loretta M. Will VR be finished anytime soon? Yes, VR, there is an issue on the issues board. That's one of the 10 bugs that's outstanding. And I think it's now the oldest of the 10, and it's got VR written all over it. VR works, but there's sort of edge cases that aren't impressive, or just classic broken bugs scenario. So that issue that's on the issues board is basically there as a reminder, not only to fix the bug that it's reporting, but also go through that general experience of playing in VR, both the shooting genre and the RPG template genre. I want both of those experiences in VR standalone to be not mind-blowing, just acceptable. You wanted VR, you should at least be able to put your headset on and experience those different genre types. So that's where you'll find it. And if you think there's something that isn't covered by that VR issue that's been posted, please do add your not feature requests. We're not adding to the VR stuff, but we are intending on fixing anything that might be broken in there, and that will be a great place to post it, because I'll have that open on my screen as I'm going through fixing all of the VR issues. So that's where you'll find the action, and hopefully the fixed needs confirmation in the not too distant future. Okay, played around with this like 2 years ago. It's fun, but pretty limited in the free trial. Yes, the free trial has a 7-day expiry, so after 7 days you have to buy it. But I think 7 days should be enough to get an idea of what GameGuru Max in. And I've said this, and I'll continue to say it forever: Max isn't for everyone. It's specifically for people who don't necessarily want or you've got the Unity and your Godot and your Unreals and all of the other like AAA development prosumer platforms, which are proven. You can actually get down, create your art, create your scripts, pull it all together, and you can make a AAA game. GameGuru Max is unproven. There isn't really a large body of games that are out there to prove that GameGuru Max can make a game. So if you're already an established developer, you probably want to go with an established tool. GameGuru Max at the moment is for people who want an alternative, don't necessarily want to script, don't necessarily want to create art, but do necessarily want to make a game relatively quickly. And that's where we are right now. Maybe one day there'll be a couple of really great games out in the world created in GameGuru Max, but we can't boast of that at the moment. And so look upon GameGuru Max as a work in progress, as an experiment in another way to do a game maker. But yes, we are not the only option out there for making games. Perhaps one of the fastest ways to make a game, but not the only way to make a game. Okay, love more Lua integration functions to use in scripts, especially the inventory system. Absolutely. Not many people are scripting these days, so it doesn't get a lot of attention. But yeah, if there's ever an opportunity to add some Lua commands, that will then allow you to go forth and make a really great gameplay experience. Just post it in the issues board. Make it clear in the title, so it's not just I want stuff. Make the title very specific about it's this batch of Lua commands that does a particular thing, and then list them out with what parameters you think they might be needing, and then what they do in as much detail as possible. The more detail that can be added, the easier it is to implement, because we don't have to make any assumptions or guess, or worse, get it wrong. Another question, this is from J Bird Max. Will we ever have a proper debugging system? Debugging system as in... oops, have I just scrolled in the wrong direction? No, it's down there. Yeah. There isn't really a debugging system as such. If you use something like Visual Studio, you have excellent debugging facilities. In fact, most development tools have really great debugging facilities. GameGuru Max doesn't really have any debugging facilities. It has a couple of tick boxes every now and again, so it shows like physics, geometry, or cylinders, or maybe some bound box culling, stuff like that. And in the behavior editor, you can actually see a highlight as the logic fires through all of the blocks as it runs different kinds of logic. So you've got supremely basic debugging, but if you're talking about full debugging tools, there are no plans to add a full-on debugger into GameGuru Max. But definitely sounds like a feature request, and if it doesn't already exist, you can post it on the issues board, go into a little bit more detail about which areas you think should have a greater level of granularity of debugging. I've got a few ideas of my own, but I'd like to hear what everyone else thinks and what everyone else thinks is important to the game they're working on right now. Okay, I think that doesn't look like a question, but here's a question from Synchro62. Lee, I tested the automatic backup, but only seemed to do it for save as, not a live click save. Can you check it later and make Slav when you just save? Yeah, I used Control B to do my testing. I don't think I clicked on the file menu drop down save, and I did do the save as, I just didn't do the save. So maybe that's a little blind spot there. But I have buried the automatic backup system right in the function that creates the FPM. There's no way it cannot call that. So maybe in this case then a small video showing an empty automatic backup folder, and then you creating a new project and then just clicking save and then tabbing back into that folder and show that there's nothing in there. There should be something in there. Not saying I don't believe you, but I need to see it. I need to see the exact series of steps so I can reproduce it, agree with you, and then get it fixed. Okay, here's another question. This is from Blood Moon Interactive. How long do you suppose it'll take to implement the continuous updating, changing, and will the next phase be adding in features? How long will it take? I haven't a clue. I have a general idea of the theory, and GitHub has some kind of, already has some sort of integration, continuous integration stuff in it, but I haven't done any reading on that yet. The biggest problem is you want continuous integration and deployment running on a server, and I have very little experience, or at least any modern experience, with creating and running software on a server. Did it way back in the day, but these days there's probably better tools better service providers, etc. So it's really, before I even do a line of code, it's a learning curve. And because that's a grey area, and the implementation is a grey area, I don't really have an estimate of how long it will take. I don't want it to take very long. If it's starting to look like almost a nearly impossible task, I'll just drop it as it was a nice idea, but it's not feasible. I'm hoping it is feasible and it won't take ages. And then after that, yes, we'll be looking at what the next steps are. One of the possibilities is we start on feature requests, but there may be other options. It's not just a decision I can make. We're part of a team, and not just a team here at TDC, but a team in terms of the community at large. So we kind of want to figure out what's the next best thing to do for benefiting the most people in the shortest amount of time. So it's not something I have on my plate to say we're doing this, then we're doing this, then we're doing this. All I know right now is I'm doing continuous integration and deployment and having that feather in my cap and adding it to the GameGuru Max ecosystem. And I think by then we'll have had conversations about what we're going to do after that. So yeah, watch this space and we'll be sure to let you know right away. Another question, when the time comes to begin adding in new features, how will they be prioritised? Well, we ain't doing a voting board, I'll tell you that for free. Not that a voting board is a bad idea, it just got a little bit out of control. No point having a voting board if nothing in the list ever gets done. Or one item on there would take 2 years all by itself. So I don't know. I think I do want to involve the community as much as possible, but also tip the hat to projects that are definitely on the way to being finished and going to go out there and be great showcases for GameGuru Max. So it's not just sort of like the loudest voices win. It's, yes, the loudest voices will give us a very strong indicator, but of those subset, which are the ones that are actually going to help people finish games and have games that are great to play. So the community will be involved. I'm not sure what form that will take. It might happen quite organically, accidentally, and we didn't force it. It just sort of, oh, it worked out that this was a really great way of doing it, and so we stick with it. But I'm not sure. We haven't got a formal way of figuring out what goes to the top of the list and what gets buried at the bottom of the list. And the next question is from Mustache Hacks. Any info on the Steam Workshop stuff? I checked it pretty often, but seems the only tutorials default mods that have been there since Workshop release. Yeah, we're still in the testing it to see if it works all right with just one contributor, with one set of Workshop items before we open it up to everyone else. And it all fits in with this transition where we've got to a sort of, you could call this a version 1 that you could put in a box and put it on a shelf if such a thing happened anymore. And then that transition from that state into a community contribution ecosystem where more and more third parties are adding their own take on, oh, this would be a great script, this would be a great piece of art, this would be a great new feature, etc. And the workshop is another great way to bring in content without us having to be the bottleneck, so everyone has to wait for us to release. The great thing about Workshop is it bypasses the need to wait for an EXP build. You could actually create some files, create a Workshop item, publish it, then other people can go into the Steam Workshop area, discover that icon, click it, get the details, subscribe to it, and it will instantly be available in GameGuru Max. And we just wanted to make sure that that was a good experience and it actually worked. I'm not convinced we're there yet. At the moment, if you want to update your Workshop items, you have to click the update button, then leave, then go on to the Steam Downloads area and watch the activity until it stops, then go back into GameGuru Max and then wait for the files to refresh. Only then do you get the latest versions. I think that's still too much of a faff. I'd rather it just happen seamlessly, magically in the background, as if you didn't do anything conscious. You didn't have to press an update button. I'll still keep the update button as a sort of an emergency thing, so you can do a clean wipe and get them. But you just want your Workshop items to auto-update. That's the idea. But when we implemented that, it didn't work. It wasn't updating automatically. We had to trick Steam by unsubscribing and resubscribing before you could get the latest items, which was weird. So we're still in testing on that. Once it is that nice, graceful experience, then I'll have absolutely no qualms of opening it up to anyone to submit Workshop content. because we'll have thoroughly tested it by then. Okay, next question underneath that one is, will we see support for weapons in VR once VR is finished? There are no plans to add anything other than what you've already seen in the Steam product page description for VR. There's a lot of things we could do in VR land, but VR, amazingly, is still just a very small subset of most Steam users, and I think there'll always be more noise to ratio on the non-VR stuff that GameGuru Max features could have next. So think of things like third-person perspective. Would you have that before VR? Probably, because everyone's asking for third person, and only say 10% of people are asking for VR related stuff. So there's a few VR feature requests already on the issues board. I think there's a good chunk of them, like 20 or 30. You can just tap at VR in the GitHub issues board search, and that'll give you a nice short list. So you can skim through the titles. If there's something that isn't in that list and you want it in a future version of GameGuru Max, the VR kind, please just add that issue there. Again, as much detail as possible, so we get a really strong handle on what you mean when you ask for a particular VR weapon. We do have VR weapons being worked on in the background. We aren't. TGC don't do much these days. A third party is creating VR weapons and VR gadgets for the day when there's enough features in VR to be able to have these weapons do clever and cool things like a gun with an LED screen, so you can just see stuff moving on the weapon. Because when you're in VR, you kind of want to look around your weapon and bring it close to your eyes and rotate it around, and you usually want more things happening on the weapon as well, like buttons and different modes and lights and screens and things like that. But yeah, it's for now it's sitting and languishing, if you will, in the issues board. But certainly, if it's not already listed, add it there with some details, and then we can figure out if it gels with what we've already got planned, or it's been duplicated in another of the issue board items. And next question is at the bottom of my current screen, which is from is it Where's one? There is a lure for play video on Entity Lure for Classic, nothing for Max. Let me just translate that. So there's a lure command for playing a video in GameGuru Classic, but there isn't that command in GameGuru Max. Is there any chance of play video on Entity for my music festival is going to be quite boring with music and no video? So is there a lure command for playing video? I don't know. I thought there was. Play video and stop video and pause video. Or is that music? Well, there certainly is a video zone. You can drop down a zone, assign a video file to it, and then when you enter that zone, the video will play. So inside that script, there should be the commands for triggering that video. So just take that command and use it in your own script so you can trigger a video remotely without having to walk into a zone. So I'm very strongly of the opinion there is a video play command in there somewhere. Maybe you're thinking it's a particular kind of video, like playing a video onto like an entity. So instead of a texture, it's a playing animation. You might be right there. That doesn't get supported in Max because the Wicked engine, the graphics engine on which we sit, GameGuru Max, didn't have video to texture playback, which is why it may not be in Max where it was in Classic when we wrote our own graphics engine back then. Hopefully that answers the question, but please do check out the video zone script. It will have the play video command inside it. All right, that wasn't the end of the chat. It was just frozen. Okay, so let's find another lovely question. No question marks all the way to the bottom, I think. And yeah, it was confirmed by someone else in the chat. There is a play video command in the lower file. Thanks for checking that out. Cineguru Max is amazing. Thank you, Jade Bird Max. I agree. Anyone who doesn't know what Cineguru Max is, written by a third party, long-standing member of the community, and it allows you to create what's called cinematics. So think of anything where you walk into a room and you want a cinematic sequence where two characters are come together and have a conversation, and then something triggers, or a door opens, or someone transports in, or something blows up, you can sequence all of those steps inside GameGuru. And it has a lot more besides. Huge list of things you can do. And there's some really nice example levels, so you can just run around the levels just to check out all the different things that GameGuru can do. It's available on the Steam DLC page. Just scroll down, look for GameGuru, and check out the videos and the description. It's pretty cool. And it's been updated recently as well. So it's doing what it needs to do for anyone who wants to do cinematics. And I'm afraid we're 46 minutes in, even though we had 5 minutes of delay and technical difficulties, and we ran out of questions in the Q&A. So what should we do, people? I'll give you 2 more minutes to ask any more questions. Doesn't have to be specifically GameGuru Max related. It could be game making in general, or maybe you'd want something on the screen demonstrating. So whilst I'm giving you those 2 minutes, I'm going to click on here, and here, and here. And I'm going to create a little game. So we'll set it in the Arctic, and we'll call it Arc. That's how I spell Arctic. And there's a start marker. And I'm going to find, I don't know, anything made of ice around here. But you got this. This is rather nice. In fact, we are working on some DLC. That is to say, we're not creating any art, but we are working with third parties to bring you future DLCs, and one of them is, I don't know if I've got it here, is some low poly stuff. Now mostly when you get like a DLC, it creates a folder here, and then you open it up into whatever DLC you've got, but there's a special subcategory of DLC for low poly stuff. Now a lot of this has been extracted from one of our other older game makers, which is why we could get our hands on quite a lot. But there was still a lot of work to convert them to work in GameGuru Max, so we handed all that work onto a third party who was quite happy to trudge through and create hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of objects for your pleasure. And what we realised is when we was compiling these low poly, they're actually perfect for VR game experiences. Remember, VR, it needs to run extremely high FPS, like 90 FPS, 120 FPS. And so you want your levels to be as fast as possible. Now our performance work has gone a long way to delivering that level of speed, and will continue to do so. But the other sort of the other tact to make sure and ensure your VR is a smooth, non-sickening experience is to use less geometry, which draws faster. And the low poly DLC set is perfect for it. So not only do you get all the scenery and items that you want, you also get the characters that you want. And we still have a lot of stuff in the background that's not been processed for GameGuru Max compatibility yet. So expect to see more, and do let us know, because as you can imagine, creating low poly stuff is quicker and easier than doing high poly, high definition stuff. And we can certainly pass along your ideas to a small collection of artists that we work with, and gently suggest that if they wanted to do some low poly stuff as a break from doing super high quality stuff, that there is an audience for it, especially if you've got an idea for a VR game and you do want it in low poly, but you haven't quite got the coverage with Arctic, fantasy, goblins and knights. There you go, found some nice Arctic stuff instead of that, whatever that table was. So there you go. I got my first Arctic game. For anyone who's joining us for the first time ever in GameGuru Max, this is what I mean about the alternative way of doing games. If you was doing Unity, Unreal, Godot and all the rest of it, you'd be sitting in a script editor now with your wonderful debugging tools. In GameGuru Max, you literally just go through a library, drop a few things down, press the rocket icon, your game's there. You've made your game. Don't let anyone tell you it ain't a game. Not a very good game, but it is a game. Okay, that's more than 2 minutes. Let's see if there's any new questions for us. And there is, thank you. I knew you wouldn't let me down. Now let's see how far I have to go back up the thread. Video texture behaviour could be a great addition. Agreed. Maybe post that in the issues board as a feature request. Again, I think Wicked Engine will let us do it easily, but it's not impossible. And if there's some absolutely cool use cases, that will give it some extra kudos. And if there's a number of community users who all want it at the same time, then I think maybe that's how we find out how we prioritize feature request additions. Right, here's a question from Osearu Gaming. Have you seen any noteworthy games in the Discord forums? There's actually a specific channel for noteworthy games written in GameGuru Max called Work in Progress, WIP. When you're on Discord, check that out. And we are encouraging people, if the project is, say, 20% in, and they're really happy with it and continuing with it, post it in the Work in Progress. Right now, it's a curiosity, and it's exciting and it's encouraging to see work happening. At some point down the line, however, we may be cherry picking some of the projects inside the Work in Progress area and then lavishing some additional TGC attention, i.e. if you really wanted that command which plays a video on instead of a texture on an object, and it's holding you back from finishing your game and releasing it on Steam, that would instantaneously get extra attention from us. Why? Because it means we've got a game written in GameGuru Max going out into the world, which is a great big sort of tick for us. And so we're motivated to do that and bump that higher up the list. But for now, check out the Work in Progress channel on Discord. It's really cool. Lots of different looking games too. They're not all the clones of what you see in the hub. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. Just save that. Come out of here. Yeah. It was leveled quite recently. The criticism is all of these hub games, they're mostly the same 2 or 3 games. They're basically soldiers or zombies, and maybe RPG, slightly wizardy, trade sort of thing. That's a bit, but then just rinse and repeat. And it'd be much better in the future if GameGuru Max Hub sported very different looking demos. So it isn't just a case of this is all we managed to come up with so far, but it is an actual condensed view of how varied and different the games can be, which I think will be a better use, at least for the front page of the GameGuru Max Hub. The problem is we just don't have the art. You know, to create a whole demo on a particular genre, you kind of have to create all of the art that surrounds it. And as you can imagine, we're not really into the... back in FPS Creator days, we created something like 76 model packs. It was a lot of work, but I don't think we got a lot of thanks for it. In fact, we just got scorned like, oh, those graphics look 10 years old. It's like, oh. But I digress. If we can actually get our hands on some really varied and interesting art, enough to actually pull together a 3 to 5 minute demo that perfectly sits on the hub and demonstrates how wildly different gameplay can be, then yeah, we'll be all for that. But for the moment, yeah, you're going to have to live with modern soldiers and zombies for a while longer until we can get our hands on some more and different and interesting stuff. Is there a plan to allow for larger maps? We haven't really had any serious requests from people who want more than 5 kilometers squared map. No one, since GameGuru Max came out of early access, has demonstrated a map full of stuff at 5 kilometers squared. Till we see a map that's bursting at the edges, then we will consider increasing the map size beyond 5 kilometers. I suppose that question is leading in that, can we not just not have a size and just have an infinite world, like a massive multiplayer sort of experience where you just walk in one direction forever? The good news is we already wrote the terrain system to be procedural, so you could actually walk in one direction forever. But it's a case of how do you populate an infinite size map? You know, you got technical problems there. And how boring a game would it be if you have to walk for 3 years before you find like a building? And how would you find it, etc. So we're still looking for case scenarios where you need more than 5 kilometers. If you have such ideas, please do post it in the issues board with as much detail and convincement as you can put into it, and then we'll check it out and see if there is actually there's some legs to it and it becomes like a proper consideration for a new feature, which it probably will be. Next question is not that one, this one. Is any new biome on the way? No plans for any new biomes. The only feature request that relates to biomes is what's called custom biomes. So we'll provide the stock biomes. If anyone knows what There's people there saying, Lee, what's a biome? Maybe no one's saying that, but let me show you. I'll demonstrate. This is kind of one of the things that I would like to the broadcaster be notorious for, instead of just listening to me talk for 55 minutes. A biome is the different kinds of scenery. So we've got plains, deserts, forests, snow or ice, canyons, mountainous territory, a rainforest with muddy water, and a blank level. We're going to add another button at some point. It's already described in great detail in the feature request, which is custom biomes. So once you've finished with those 8, if any third party wants to create their own biome sets, which is their own parameters for how terrain is generated, what the terrain is textured with, and a million other variables, those profiles can be saved in a special folder and given a name, and then they'll show up when you create a new level. Those additional biomes will show up. So you might want to do Marsscape or the moon or underwater or whatever it happens to be. Those can be added, and then of course they can be made into workshop items and shared with the community. We don't have to get involved then. We could have 50 or 100 biome choices out there in the world. All we did was added the ability to let you create custom biomes. So that's the next thing that TGC will be involved with. But after that, the community can take over and create as many biomes as you like. Okay, I've just got to scroll so to read a bit higher up, and I found one from Paul Walker. Will Max get its own projectile system? The classic one uses decals, is rather dated. It certainly is. In fact, before this broadcast I was playing Fallout 4, and anyone who's subscribed to Amazon Prime knows why I'm playing Fallout 4 again. And it is impressive, and one thing I noticed that when I got my scimitar and hit a wall, the sparks that came off were nice proper volumetric particles that hit and sprayed off in the right direction. So I'm a little bit envious now that that's been around for at least 12 years and we're still using the flat decal. That is completely not convincing if you see it in VR. But it is a feature request, it is on the issues board. It's just a question of, you know, how high is it up the list, and then once we get it to the top of the list, then it gets added. But it's not been ignored, it's just on the list, and there's other things on the list too. Mr. Quentin asks, will there be an option for music DLCs? We are waiting for third parties to come to us with all of their many and wonderful things. And no one's come to us yet with, I don't think anyone's come to us yet with music. I think we've had approaches for sound effects, and we may have already released something along those lines. Now, I might be talking rot, and there already is a music DLC out there. What happened many, many moons ago is when we start handing it over so it's like, look, we're getting flack for selling DLC, but we don't get as much flack if we sell other people's content as a DLC. And so that's our policy from now on. But we just need a musician to come along, and the problem is music, you know, it takes a long time to create, and it is quite costly. If you go to a music website and you license something for a commercial game, it's not cheap. It's like $30, $40. And that's one song cut up into 4 or 5 or 6 different variations. It's $40. That's like you're paying as much for that one track of music as you did for the entire game making software that you used to put the music into. Now, we are notorious with our DLCs that we offer excellent value. For the price of one model somewhere else, you get 100 models in our DLC. Not sure we can bring that same value when it comes to quality music. I'm sure there are music out there that we could pull 100 together of, but it'd be a very miserable a musician who is getting his stuff being sold for pennies. Better idea maybe just to go to the aforementioned music websites like Shockwave Sound is one, and there's a gazillion musics to choose from at a whole range of prices, and then you get to pick and choose and find that perfect music for your game, and then you've got all the licenses all sorted out for you, because that's why you pay a bit more, because you get that proper commercial license, so you can go on, incorporate into your work and sell your work without having to pay a royalty back to the original musician. Okay, but we will let you know if a music DLC comes along for GameGuru Max. I think it's a good idea, but we are powerless until someone comes along with 100 music tracks they would like us to sell. And now I come to think of it, yes, Lee, why don't you try thinking? In fact, I like mountains. Oh, I like mountains. We're going to mountains. Very well thought out level name there. We go to music, and then we go to the library for sounds. We built this up over 2-3 years because we needed different categories for all the different kinds of music. Yeah, we've got some music in here that you can choose from. But I think there is a DLC that covered sounds. I'm almost certain of it. I just cannot remember what it was called. But yeah, I won't spend the last -1 minute looking for it. Just go into the Steam DLC list. There should be one that relates to sound effects. But I'm carrying on. I asked for questions and it would be a shame if I just didn't get to them. So we are going to go over the hour by a couple of minutes. But I don't think anyone minds that much. And of course, you can always pause and watch it later on YouTube. So going up, up and up and up. And I found the next question. Will there be a sort of cloud management for the project to work on them from different machines? No, the project system will be entirely local, but you can create that folder inside a Dropbox area, and then Dropbox takes care of making it cloudily, and also takes care of any backups as well. You'll need a big area if it's a lot of game files, but that's what I would recommend. Create your project folder inside a Dropbox area and let it take care of the cloud stuff. But we don't plan on becoming a cloud provider at this moment in time. Any chance to have multiple behaviors attached to the same NPC? That's a feature request that's already in the issues board. It's a great idea, but it's sort of like, where do you stop? Maybe you want 3 or 4 or 5, and then it's 10, and then it gets unwieldy. Is there a better way of combining behaviors onto a single object? So that's the question we currently still have before we just plumb for adding 2 or 3 or 4, which is relatively easy, but might be short-sighted. The next question is here. That is exactly why I'm asking. What is the best way to reach out as a composer? Just drop an email, lee@thegamecreators.com. Send me a sample or a portfolio of work, and we'll discuss terms. It's as simple as that. We are absolutely set up to work with third parties and make DLCs available to all the GameGuru Max community. That's what we do. That's one of the things we do. So yeah, lee@thegamecreators.com. Happy to get in touch. Or you can reach out to Dave on Discord. Thanks, everyone. Okay, looks like we've got one more question. If anyone has any specific scripts... Oh, no, that's a request. Thank you, Lee. That's it. We are 3 minutes over, but it was 5 minutes late. So we're 58 minutes into the broadcast, which is perfect. That means this YouTube video will be 59 minutes and hopefully 42 seconds, which is always the goal. I'll just keep trimming the intro track until it's exactly 42 minutes on the 59th minute and the 42th second. If anyone knows what I'm talking about with 42, well, you know what I'm talking about. So that's it for this month. We hold these live broadcasts on the last Saturday of every month. This has been April, so we are going to do one again at the end of May. So go check out your calendar, look for the last Saturday in May, and at 7 PM GMT, or I think it's now BST, you will actually find us here talking about GameGuru Max, showing off a few little things, but mainly answering your questions and demonstrating if you would like a demonstration in the software itself. So thanks for tuning in and remembering to show up, and I will be back in around 30 days time with more GameGuru Max news. So until then, thank you very much and goodbye.